Coming up on Hot Hardware, we're talking about Nvidia's latest move. Does it doom them forever? A 3D notebook? Smartphones taking over the world wide web? And some more stuff coming up on Hot Hardware. Welcome to Hot Hardware, where we talk about the hottest tech. I'm Aya Zakhtar alongside Dave Altavilla and Marco Chiappetta. Marco, Nvidia is doing something very odd. They've introduced a brand new graphics card available at Best Buy. Now, this is unusual because usually they license their technology to other companies, and Nvidia is inside of other companies' graphics cards. What's going on with this deal?
So it's kind of interesting. First of all, thanks for taking everything that I was going to talk about. Second of all, what they're doing is, you know, up to this point, they've always sold graphics cards branded by partners. But this time around, Nvidia branded graphics cards, actually just a GeForce GTX 460, is being sold at Best Buy as a standalone product.
But why on earth do you think they'd be doing something like this? Wasn't there another company out there a long time ago that did something very similar? I think it's 3DFX. Yeah,
well, sort of. It's not exactly the same thing because Nvidia is just sort of testing the waters here with with just Best Buy. But that's exactly what 3DFX did. You know, they were selling their chips to partners. Then they bought a company, STB, and started making their own boards and kind of cut their partners out of it, and ultimately ended up failing. So it's just everyone online is chatting about it. People on our forum chatting about it, drawing parallels between Nvidia and 3DFX. It's not the same situation, but it was just interesting news.
Do you foresee Nvidia just not licensing stuff anymore, or do you think this is
no way? They're definitely going to still license their chips. That's their bread and butter, selling through their multiple partners.
No license for you.
Dave, you guys got to check out a 3D-capable IdeaPad. This thing was one of the ugliest things I've seen, with a big tramp stamp on the cover. I mean, yeah, it's a tribal tattoo on an IdeaPad. I don't quite get that. Dave, what did you think of the actual device, apart from its, as far as I'm concerned, hideousness?
Well, you know, I actually think it's a good-looking machine. I don't think that's a tramp stamp at all. It's a nice piece of, artwork on the top of it. It's stylish, in my opinion, and it's got a classy chassis. But to each his own, I guess. To answer your question, it's a 3D-capable laptop that, unfortunately, we think fell a little bit short, which is not common for Lenovo products in our labs. We actually are pretty fond of certainly the ThinkPad brand of products, and Lenovo generally known for a higher quality notebook. But yeah, this machine actually equated to a lower quality 2D display, lower resolution 2D LCD, 1366 by 768 native resolution, and not so good 3D capability. It actually has some bundled software that comes with it that actually called TriDef, that claims to be able to turn 2D content into 3D. And it didn't do such a great job of that. Viewing angle wasn't so good. It crashed during a couple of games. So it sort of fell short on the 3D claim. But then again, that's sort of indicative of where 3D technology is in the marketplace right now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if your gimmick is a 3D display and you don't do that well, plus they didn't bundle in a Blu-ray drive, I mean, trying to convert 2D to 3D looks like that's going to be a mess as well. I mean, 3D content isn't really there, is it?
Well, it's not quite there yet. As a matter of fact, our editor trudged down to the local Blockbuster Video, and he had to settle for Coraline in 3D. Now there's a real thriller. Yeah, so pop that into the DVD drive, standard DVD. It's standard definition 3D content, and so really you need Blu-ray to get high def content. And so there's just not a lot of high def, 3D content out there, and the displays to show it, especially in a notebook, it's not quite there yet, at least, in my opinion.
Now, Marco, do you think 3D works any better on a small screen like a laptop compared to something like a giant TV?
I think it can. The first thing to consider is the content has to be created with 3D in mind. Just converting old content to 3D, it's just never going to work as well as, anyone that went to see Avatar in 3D knows how well the 3D worked there. But as far as the screen goes, the passive technology that was used in this Lenovo notebook, I don't think is as good as the active tech that's in some new Asus notebooks that uses Nvidia's active shutter glasses, the 3D vision glasses. Yeah. So it can be there with the right hardware and the right content. It's just too early right now. Not everybody's supporting it. Not every notebook has the right kind of screen. There's a lot that needs to happen still.
I don't know. Anything that requires you to wear glasses on top of, like for me, other glasses, it just seems silly. Plus, the viewing
Glassless 3D is where it's at. Agreed, IS.
I like 3D in real life. Let's just stick to it that way. Anyway, let's talk about SandForce. You guys might not be familiar with the name SandForce, but they're responsible for making controllers that make SSDs fly. They had an announcement. Marco, could you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is very cool. So anybody that's been shopping for an SSD should know who SandForce is. They make the controllers in some of today's better SSDs. Now, we spoke to the company last week. They just announced, it's not available just yet, but they just announced a new family of controllers that use a SATA 3 interface, and performance is almost double the current generation drives. So they're telling us that the next gen drives that are going to be based on the SF2000 family controllers are going to be capable of 500 meg per second sequential reads and writes with 60K 4K random IOPS. That is just huge. Anybody that's using an SSD now that has felt that performance increase that came from moving from a hard drive to an SSD, it's almost like another order of magnitude increase, double the performance of the drives today, nearly double at least.
Now, this was just an announcement. Do we have any release or timeline kind of information?
Yeah, so no official release, no products named. They did. SandForce did say that all the usual partners will likely have products based on the controller, so OCZ, Corsair, what have you. We're hearing early next year. They're going to start in the enterprise space and then trickle down into the consumer space.
So that sounds like it's going to be pretty interesting once that comes out. We're talking some really fast read-write speeds, right? 500 megabytes?
500 megabytes per second.
Megabytes. That's not megabits. Megabytes.
Right. Well, the other thing that's interesting, for an enthusiast, 2 of those in RAID, approaching a gig per second on your storage array, it's going to be awesome.
It will be interesting to see, too, you noted the SATA 3 interface. It's actually a 6 gigabit per second SATA interface. It will be interesting to see if the controller itself on a standard 3 gigabit per second, standard Generation 2 SATA interface, how it does with, legacy motherboards and those applications as well.
So my little card that tells me everything says that smartphones consumed the largest percentage of mobile content. This is the first time this has happened, considering smartphones only have a quarter of the market. Dave, what do you think is going on here?
I think I need a little card that tells me everything. You got one of those for me?
I only happen to have one. You have a whole site for that.
It's like the easy button. We all need that. Hey, yeah, so, if you asked us, I don't know, 10 years ago, 11 years ago when we started this thing called HotHardware.com, if smartphones were going to be that important to us, we would have probably told you were crazy. Smartphones weren't that smart back then either, I suppose. But yeah, as a matter of fact, smartphones dominate. They make up the largest share of mobile content being consumed out there, with Android 17% of the smartphone market, Apple 14, RIM 18, Symbian 41%. And yeah, I mean, it's just amazing the actual explosion of the smartphone in the marketplace. And let's face it, these days the computing power that you can hold in your hand is pretty impressive.
What do you think, Marco? I know you got a dual booting phone, which sounds like a crazy idea. 10 years ago, that would not be something in my mind. But I know you have I think it's a Windows Mobile 6.5, so obviously you hate yourself because you're running that.
Exactly.
And you have Android on the same device. Why don't you tell us about it a little bit?
That's right. So actually, as a geek and a hardware guy, this is what I find really fun. I getting a piece of hardware, tinkering with it, and making it something that it wasn't in the beginning. So yeah, I'm running an AT&T Tilt 2. It's an old phone. I'm dying to upgrade. But running custom ROMs, I have the latest build of Winmo 653. You can't even buy phones that have this build on it. It's completely modified, so the interface looks totally different. And this phone, due to community involvement and guys in the XDA developers forum, who I need to give them a plug because they're super smart, I'm also able to run Froyo with literally, I just click an icon, Winmo shuts down, I'm running Android. So it's kind of fun for a guy in my position who just loves technology, that now I can play with my smartphone the same way I used to be overclocking my PC, just tinkering and making it different. It's really fun for someone like me.
How does Froyo run on that thing?
It actually runs really good. I'll shoot some video after. I'm going to boot it up now. So literally, I click an icon, Winmo is going to shut down, and Android is going to launch. It's really, really wild. You'll see it start to boot there.
Oh, neat.
So it works really well. It's not finished. You know, the camera doesn't work right. Making calls isn't perfect yet. But the fact that some guys in a forum can, you know, grab the open source Android and make an OS for a different phone, I think is really cool.
It still sounds like you're punishing yourself with Windows Mobile 6.5.
Yeah.
Even if it's 6.5.3.
You're a hater. You are a hater.
I'm a hater because I've used it. Anyway, I got to get off my Windows Mobile soapbox. Let's talk about a reader question, shall we?
Sure.
And this one's from Inspector. What parts would you use to build the best system possible if money was not an issue? Who wants to take this?
Who's going first, Dave, me or you?
I'll go first because you're going to one-up me for sure.
Go for
it. You already own yours. But
right.
yeah, you know, that's an excellent question. If money was no object, I would say right now, from a processor standpoint, I'd go with one of Intel's 6-core processors, 900 series processors, probably a 980X Extreme processor. And I'd probably throw in something like 6 or 12 gig of DDR 1333 memory. I don't think you have to. You could put in some higher bandwidth memory, DDR3 1600 or 2000 memory, whatever. But you know, up above 1333 megahertz, you reach a point of diminishing returns in terms of performance with the Core i7 platform. Tons of SSDs rated up in, you know, RAID 0, probably a SandForce based RAID 0 array, and or one of the newer PCI Express based SSDs that are out there in the market. Actually, there's a couple of interesting ones we're going to be looking at that'll hopefully be bootable. And let's see what else. You know, 30-inch panel. I think Dell's got a new 30-inch IPS panel that's looking pretty sweet. We haven't looked at that yet, but Marco and I both run Dell 3008 WFP 30-inch panels currently, and would stick with one of those, maybe 3 of them in surround. And then graphics. I would say right now, good question. You know, I'm not big on heating up my case with a ton of GPUs, so I'd probably go with a pair of high-end ATI Radeon 5870s or GTX 480s in SLI, and, you know, do a multi-monitor setup with that. You know, not too far off what I'm running right now.
What about you, Marco? What would you actually put into one of these beasts?
So if money was no object, my criteria for a PC are high performance, and it has to be quiet. And I don't want to heat up my office. My office
and stable,
is small, so,
right?
Yeah, and stable. So I'm sort of running my dream machine right now because I'm lucky enough to work at HotHardware. I have a pair of 6-core Xeons, 12 gigs of RAM, and an EVGA classified SR2 motherboard. A pair of Radeon HD 5870 Ifinity 6 edition, so two 2-gig 5870s. I have a pair of Crucial SSDs for my OS volume in RAID 0, a 2 terabyte storage volume, a Creative X5 sound card, you know, in an awesome Lian Li aluminum case. Now, if money was no object, you could go nuts and add more drives, you know, more of basically everything. But, you know, it's kind of overkill. At this point, something that I'm running right here is just super powerful. I'll never tax it, you know, until it's time to upgrade again.
Now,
and you're all jealous.
I'll answer the question. What parts would I use? Computer parts. Now, let's talk about Hot Hardware all over the web. I know that Hot Hardware is at hothardware.com. Marco, where else can everyone go to find Hot Hardware?
We are everywhere. We're at dig/HotHardware, YouTube/HotHardwareVids, Facebook/HotHardware, Twitter/HotHardware. And of course, you can go to the greatest, HotHardware.com.
Hey, we do have a contest coming up, though.
Oh, yeah?
Stay tuned. We're lining up some poor sucker of a hardware vendor. No. No, we're lining up some good equipment for our next giveaway, and days away, I would say, maybe a week tops.
So some good equipment, not the lousy stuff we normally give away.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, we don't give away killer gaming rigs on a regular basis.
Going to be podcast related. That's the hint for now.
So I'm eligible. I guess I'm not eligible. Oh, okay, anyway.
I wouldn't give you anything anyway.
I think we should wrap up that on that note of hate for Marco. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks, Dave and Marco. And go to hothardware.com. That's where you can find everything we talked about and more.